Welcome to the latest episode of Skytale Insights. My name is James Turcott, and we're happy to be joined by Santosh Patel, President of Complete Specialty Solutions. Thanks for being here with us.
Hey, James. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks. I think we always like to start these out by just kind of getting a little bit of background of yourself. Appreciate you coming in. I think you're one of the top people from in live perspective, as we've only done 5 or 6 of these already. So thanks for being one of our guests, and would love to just hear about the company, a little bit of your background, and then we'll kind of hop in.
Yeah, no, thank you again. Honor to be here. Again, my name is Santosh Patel, President and co-founder of Complete Specialty Solutions. We started this company about 6 years ago, really with the mission and vision of how do we incorporate dental specialists into dental offices, right? So my wife is a general dentist. We used to have a dental practice in Houston before we moved back to Dallas. And through that journey, I realized as she pulled me in to help her on a Saturday with an emergency patient, is she was really referring away patients, and patients were asking, why can't they do that there, right? And so it was a conversation that started. My background is coming from the medical world, where I built multi-specialty physician groups. And we were building large multi-specialty groups that really served and catered to that one need in particular. So fast forward, we started the company, myself, a couple partners, one's an orthodontist, an entrepreneur, technology entrepreneur. And we knew, in addition to the operations, we're going to have to build some type of technology platform to really streamline the communication between specialists, the office, and ourselves as a kind of a bridge. And we're really just in 3 markets, Houston, Dallas, and Austin. And our vision was to really, break the fragmentation of the specialty, structure. And we've been able to do that. A little disruption has been nice. But in addition to the white glove service of bringing in the doctor, the RDAs, the supplies and equipment and technology, we also are now able to provide this level of support, to groups nationwide. And that allows us to really support more groups that have that same vision of being able to create that one-stop shop for their patients.
Yeah, and I love that. And so, from your background, being involved in multi-site, how did that kind of translate, that vision of supporting, I think you've even mentioned, supporting 60, 70 location type groups. So how did that kind of play into the thesis of what you guys are building today?
Oddly enough, it actually was the counter to our solution, right? So we initially went out with the mindset of saying, well, how do we help solo practices and small groups really provide this level of service where only larger groups were able to, right? The larger groups had the infrastructure, they had the resources, they had specialty recruiters, they had specialty operators. But the solo practice who just needed an oral surgeon or endodontist once or twice a month just was not able to really justify investing into that structure, right? So we started there, COVID hit, and then all of a sudden, we're helping groups, small practices, and then large, private equity-backed groups who are needing that same store revenue cash flow to continue to come back and bounce back because of the loss in the financials that they receive. So really, our model kind of expanded over that period of time, and now we're 60%, large group, and then 40% solo and small group practices.
And I'm curious, and I know we have a plethora of other things to get to, but from a multi-site to a single site, how do you, in your mind, attack them differently? Or is it the same? Like, how does the strategy, I guess, differ?
So the strategy that we realized very early on is we need to continue to be seen as a partner, not a vendor.
Sure.
Right? And so we're essentially an associate of that practice, even if it's once a month or twice a month. And with the small group practice, the solo practices, really the doctor owner is heavily involved in ensuring that this is a positive relationship. When you go to some of the larger organizations, you tend to have different layers, right? So you have the office manager and or the doctor, but the doctor may not be a partner or is an associate and has been there for quite some time, but may not be a partner in the organization. And then you have regional directors, and then from the regional directors you have chief operating officers.
Yep.
So it takes more time and patience to go through that path. But once you hit on all cylinders there, then it's very easy to scale that within the organization. But it takes a little bit more patience there. I would say the group and solo practices, quick meeting, quick handshake, and they're ready to go in the next 30 days.
Yeah. So to kind of plug and play a little bit.
Exactly.
Love it. Well, we've got, like I said, a plethora of things to kind of work through. And, I think the first, you guys have such a unique business model. And so, I think the key question that we've continued to be asked this year is like, what does 2024 look like in the dental industry? It's a little bit, it's become a little bit different with the consolidation with, the middle market DSOs selling to these massive funds. What in your mind, because you still work with those single site locations. And so, what do you kind of see just in the industry in general? What's this year got in store for us?
No, you're exactly right, James. So we're a specialty DSO, but our clients, range from solo practices to groups, and so we're listening to what their pain points are and their struggles are, and really gathering the insight that they have a plan for what their plan for is for 2024. And really, it comes back down to the same thing. Everybody wants to really optimize their existing financials or EBITDA. Labor costs have gone through the roof,
Yep.
right? Other expenses, yes, they've gone up, but really it's the labor cost that's gone up the most, right? 30 to 35%, where RDAs you're paying $20 an hour, now you're paying $27 an hour, right? So being able to now look for ways to grow their profitability, their EBITDA, to be able to put them in the right position either later this year, next year, where they can have that conversation again and get back in those discussions where multiples make sense.
Yep.
But they're also very cognizant of who their partner is going to be. I think before they were very open to just the highest bidder.
Sure.
Right now it's who is a strategic partner for us. These dentists have 10, 15 years left to continue to work, and so they don't want to make a rush decision. They want to make the right decision. And sometimes that means maybe it's not the highest bidder, but it's somebody who's going to put us in the right position for long-term growth.
Yeah, and we've seen just a ton of activity there on that front. And so, from a Skytale perspective, when we kind of start with our clients, everyone wants to grow, everyone wants to do
Sure.
more. But, it's easier said than done when you say just go do more revenue or go do more services. And you're a unique service in that it's a different avenue, because just like you mentioned, I think we see that kind of, hygiene wages have been really the biggest thing for us that have kind of just skyrocketed. And so a lot of our clients are like, well, how do I solve that? And it's like, well, maybe that's not the focus that like you need to have right now. The focus is do more in other areas. And so I'd love for you to kind of touch on that, because you're a service that is a different kind of line of business. And so, when you think about just do more, what in your mind?
Sure. Yeah. So I am so glad we are not in the hiring hygiene business.
Yeah, totally. It's brutal.
Yeah. So we see it, we hear it from our partners, but we've decided to stay away. I think for a period of time, it was easier to hire an oral surgeon than it was a hygienist, right? And so, but do more, right? And so ultimately it's either you're providing that level of service where it's Invisalign, it's implants as a general office, or you're bringing in someone in to provide that level of service, right? And this is not just a general practice. This is also for pediatric practices. Are you bringing in an orthodontist? Are you bringing in an oral surgeon? For perio practices are bringing in endodontists. They're bringing in oral surgeons to kind of complement their services. So it really spans to multiple different areas. And one of the things that I realized on the do more, though, was, and we know very, very capable dentists, right? And their skill sets are great from a clinical standpoint, but their case acceptance is struggling. Yeah. And so how do they build some of that case acceptance as well? And again, my wife's a dentist, right? So I asked her the question. I said, so when you were in dental school, how did you practice the clinical side? She's like, oh, the whole second year we're working on typodonts. We're working constantly on typodonts. Third, fourth year, we see a patient for an hour. You spend 4 hours back on the typodont. We're constantly doing practice and role play on how that clinical case would go. It's like, well, how often do you do role play on talking to a patient about the importance of this?
Right,
procedure?
like that personal connection.
Yeah. She's like, never.
Yeah.
I was like, so you don't practice that? She's like, no, you just kind of get thrown in. And I was like, well, that seems to be maybe one of the fundamental problems. That you can be a great clinician, technically, but if you don't understand how to really improve your ability to ensure that the patient understands the value benefit of this treatment, then there's going to be a gap, and there's always going to be a gap, right? So do more is not technically enhance your clinical skill set, but do more is how are you going to ensure your patients understand the value benefit of these procedures.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned kind of that case acceptance, and we see it a ton from referring out of the office,
Right.
and there's a ton of production to be had there with retaining that patient, not only in
Sure.
like your ecosystem of they don't go down the block and maybe they don't come back or whatever that looks like.
Exactly.
So, I mean, in your mind, how do you kind of see there's an art to it from a conversion perspective,
Sure.
but how do you see offices kind of improve when they're able to kind of keep those patients in house? The ecosystem gets a little bit larger.
It does. Again, it's how we shop. We go to Super Target, we go to Costco. We want to stay. Patients, just by their buying habits, they've proven that they want to stay in one place, right? So we just have to allow them to do that. And in order to do that, being able to provide your patients that message of, listen, we have everything in this one practice for you. And so we have this comprehensive solution. Could I do your implant? Yes, I could. But I actually bring in a specialist to place your implant. I work with that specialist on the collaboration for your restorative. So we're really going to partner together to make this make sense for you, right?
Yeah. And I'm curious, from building off of that, the execution has got to be precise, right? Like
Sure.
from the handoff perspective. So maybe talk a little bit about that
Yeah.
handoff, because you're bringing in someone that's external to the organization.
It's-
So what does that handoff look like?
So going back to role play,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
The handoff is one. Does the specialist and the general practice team know each other, right?
Okay.
So it's as a general office, and let's say the hygienist is with a patient, the hygienist cannot say, well, we have an oral surgeon and they can help you with that. They need to say, well, we have Dr. John Smith, fantastic oral surgeon. The patients love him.
Yep.
Dr. Joe, Burrow will tell you all about Dr. John
You a Bengal
Smith,
fan?
right? Yeah, I'm not actually. But when I think Joe, I got to go Burrow.
Nice. I love it.
So the workflow is, first, does everybody know each other? Is everyone confident with each other? And then the handoff is actually quite scripted, right? And so we go through that training with the practices, but honestly, it's not rocket science. It's just like any other script. The script is useless if it's not practiced, right? And if it's not role played and it's not adjusted to your personality type. So you have to be able to, again, operationalize that component of it. And then once you get into enough repetitions and practice, right, then it becomes second nature. And I also think it's the easy wins. And that's what I've noticed through all of this, because everything's a change management, right? Yep. So now the team's got to talk about the specialist and who is it. So if you can get some easy wins where the specialist comes in, the patients have a great experience, then it's easier for the team to say, hey, we have this great doctor who's coming in, right? At the very beginning, it's just like riding a bike. You're a little shaky at the start, but once you get some speed, you're steady. And that's typically how you want to structure it. So you want to go through some exact role play of what this is going to look like before this actually happens. Yep. And then operationally, there's some, billing, collections, kind of steps that you go through.
Totally.
But again, none of that is, you can find most of that on ChatGPT, right?
Yep.
Like you can get that information readily available, but it's the practice of it.
I love that you just mentioned ChatGPT.
Oh, I love ChatGPT.
That's a good transition, I think, because we're talking about, a new service line, but that's human capital. That's,
right.
New providers. This is the opposite. So, yes. With technology and I'm sure every group out there is looking to be more efficient, be able to run things in a way that allow them to, obviously gain better EBITDA, whatever, improve the organizational efficiency.
Right.
And so AI is a huge, huge talking point today, I feel like. And so, you talk about the Pearls and the Overjets of the world, but what's kind of just your overall take? And then maybe we can just kind of get into it from there.
I absolutely love the fact that AI is incorporated in, right? So coming from the medical world, AI was there in the radiology space, orthopedic space. So that already existed, and patients are actually aware of it.
Yeah.
They're just not aware of it in dental, right? And I think there is this fear of how do we incorporate this into the dental world. But if you take a step back and you just think about the impact of social media, right? So social media can be good or bad. And for many instances, it can be bad for a patient who had a negative experience at a dental office and how quickly that viral message can be spread. I would say more and more patients are becoming skeptical of what their dentist says they need from a treatment standpoint because of social media, right? Like, you can have 3 people who have a great experience, but those 3 people are not as loud or vocal as the 3 people who may have had a bad experience.
So it's like creating doubt, essentially.
It creates doubt,
Yeah.
right? And so where AI comes in is you're essentially leveling the playing field. You're saying, hey, listen, we've never met. You're a new patient. We've never met. I have about 5 minutes just based on my vocabulary, my body language, for you to then trust me.
Yep.
Maybe you found me through a referral, or maybe just the signage from, because I live on a street that's close to you, right? But how am I going to establish trust? And that's where AI, I would say, really comes in. And so, Overjet, Pearl, like many of our offices that we serve use Pearl.
Yep.
And so I'm more familiar with kind of that platform. And Pearl essentially makes it very simple in the sense that they have this practice intelligence platform that really highlights your huddle for the day. That says, here are your opportunities. Here's how it's broken out in different segments. And then you can click on it, and it's, show a patient. Like, hey, this is what we're looking at from a carry standpoint. This is what we're looking at from, a failed endo standpoint. Or here are your missing teeth, and this is why we believe an implant here will support, the teeth above or below, and give you, a full smile and really confidence back. But I believe the AI component is not just from a clinical standpoint. It's really a trust building mechanism. And so
interesting. I haven't thought of it that way. So that's fascinating. And so when we think about kind of the practices that you guys work with, you mentioned a lot of them have Pearl over Jet. How does that help kind of the specialists come into play? I'm assuming it gives merit to everything
yes.
They're saying, and they're not just upselling you on whatever treatment. So how do you like everyone to have AI? Like, how does that help you guys?
It cues it up.
Yeah.
Right? And it's equally as important. So, going back to the first point of do more, right? So a doctor who wants to go place implants, the more they place implants, the more comfortable they feel in placing implants, the more they diagnose implants as a good solution, right? So as they're practicing their case acceptance on it, there can still be a specialist there placing implants until they feel comfortable to do it enough. And very similarly in AI, right? So you're now able to diagnose, educate the patient on, here are your options. This is what we see. It's not just my eyes, right? Now we're looking at aggregate of data. This is technology. You've trusted this same technology with your cardiologist. Right. You trusted the same technology with the radiologist. We're now bringing it into the dental space. And so this is essentially, view this as your second opinion on the sense of, what we're seeing.
Yeah. And it's funny, you mentioned the other subsectors that it's used in. And when we think about, doctors, and they're stuck in their ways to an extent, some of them, how do you get them over the hurdle of, this is actually good for your practice? It isn't taking away the benefits of you as a human, being able to do the work that you do, but it's reinforcing it. And so, like, what are those conversations like? Because I know there's a lot of pushback.
It's the messaging,
yeah,
right? So the messaging, I think sometimes a clinician will see AI and say, well, you're trying to replace my diagnosis. And that's actually not the goal, right? The goal is to be able to say, you're replacing the way I'm presenting this information back to a patient. Right? You're not replacing your diagnosis, and it could complement your diagnosis and validate your diagnosis, or it can catch something that you missed, right? But ultimately, the goal here is you're presenting this to the patient. You're educating the patient about this, and how are you building trust with the patient? I take my car to Sewell, so I take that back. I used to. A month ago, I got a Tesla. So I used to go to Sewell. Love Sewell. And that was a decision maker for me. It was tough.
Yeah.
But when I would go to Sewell and I would send my car in for just routine maintenance, they had somebody who just recorded their assessment of my brake pads in different areas. Because if they just told me, I wasn't going to trust them.
Right.
I don't know why. Right? Like
right.
Going to a mechanic sometimes is very similar to going to a dentist. Mm-hmm. You can tell somebody, hey, you have a cavity here, but as a patient, if I don't feel pain,
right,
maybe it's not a priority.
It's the trust factor of they're telling you the truth.
It goes back to trust. And so, regardless of how, the experience the dentist is, if they're towards the end of their career, the beginning of their career, they should really view it as, who is their patient base, and will the patient base find value in it? And then it also goes back to change management, right? So how are you going to incorporate this into your practice, and what's the approach in getting buy-in from everybody? And I had several ideas of how they do that. The practices who are successful really, again, invest into their teams in the training concept of it, and it pays dividends for them.
Yeah. And, from a production standpoint, I can only imagine how much that just helps the do more concept of pushing them forward.
And you have to start small, right? We always say crawl, walk, run, right? So when you look at the diagnosis and when you think about how you're going to incorporate this with your team, make it digestible. Take it into little chunks first. You have 40 patients today. Are you going to use it for all 40 patients? And is it going to end up being a time suck in terms of perspective as this is now new for the team? Or you could say, hey, look, we did our huddle today. Based on this huddle, we found 5 patients who seemed to benefit, could benefit from an endo case or a crown. And here's the clinical reasons why. And here's the images based on AI on why. So for those 5 patients, here are the 5 patients we're going to target. So when I walk into that room, you should already have this platform pulled up for us. We're not going to do it with every patient yet. Let's take it in digestible stages. Let's do this with 5 patients. Let's identify treatment modalities first. Get buy-in. Take the easy win, right? Patients say yes. They're like, hey, this is comfortable for me. Makes sense. And then once they start to see patients understanding that this is why they're trusting or they believe that this treatment's important, then again, that'll waterfall into the next treatment modality. So that ultimately we have success.
How do you see that pushing kind of the scalability of an organization? Because, it's powerful if you're able to hone in on that. And you take little chunks, but then it snowballs. And I'm thinking about just all the organizations that maybe are looking to de novo out a new location or something along those lines, where you have a technology that allows you to get patients to trust you a whole lot quicker, allows you to ramp that practice up. Like, how do you see that growth happening, not only, on the organic side, but the inorganic side of kind of layering that in?
And it's funny because it goes back, and you guys probably do this all the time with your customers and clients, right? Is what if we just saw one more crown?
Right. Totally.
If we saw one more
production
crown,
per day.
Yeah. So just one more. If we did, let's say it was a low reimbursement, right? Let's say we did $1,000 per day more in production because we're able to identify an opportunity, earn the trust of the patient, and present this to them in a way where they believe that this is important for them, and which ultimately is part of their oral health goals, right? So that's $5,000 a week. It's $20,000 a month, right? Well, $20,000 a month times 12, right? So 240,000. That starts to add up, and that has that avalanche effect, right? And then you scale that past 15 locations that you may have. That again, that patent one, it pays for itself. Right? I think these platforms are somewhere between $300 to $500 a month. So if you can identify 2 patients because of this platform, and then help leverage the opportunity to improve case acceptance because of it, then it does pay for itself. And I hate that comment, honestly. Like, you hear that from vendors all the time. It's like, oh, if you just do one more, you pay for itself. Like, yeah, but if you also find me 10 patients, it's easier, right?
Fair. Yeah.
But this one actually makes sense simply because it is AI driven. It's technology that's building trust.
And it doesn't require the human capital component of it. You're not hiring another headcount. You're not hiring that overhead cost. Yes, I get there's a system cost to it, but to me, it feels a whole lot cheaper and more efficient, but really accomplishes the same goal as having that extra set of eyes on another patient.
It absolutely does. And actually, it would probably save less time on the back and forth, right?
Yeah.
And by having that technology implemented in the practices, patients get to be part of their treatment plan. It's the way I view it, and you take a step back and think about how has intraoral pictures changed the game for dentistry. Right?
Totally.
Why did we take pictures before? Because we wanted to show the patients. Well, we're doing this now at a deeper level. And I don't think you can walk into a single dental office that doesn't have an intraoral camera. So it's going to happen. Right? But the early adopters are the ones who start to gain the benefits.
Absolutely.
Because you get the practice and the repetition and all of that.
I love it. Yeah. So, kind of thinking about the AI component, circling back to what you guys do as an organization, and really a thing we've seen come to light a lot over the last couple years, and I know you find it very valuable, is kind of membership plans. And I'm curious, one, how does the organization for you layer into those membership plans? Like, is it tacked on? How do you guys work with membership plans at the practice? But then two, again, it's a do more. It's another avenue to keep that patient in your ecosystem. So have you kind of just seen the trends change a little bit there?
I would say membership plans is probably one of the most overlooked value adds to a practice, right? So, in terms of how we incorporate in, right, the membership plans, depending on the company that you use, like you can create custom plans both for specialty, you can create custom plans where it's just a discount, right? So that's where we plug in. So our partners who have membership plans, we work to understand what they have and how we incorporate either orthodontic services or implant services, but implant with some warranty protection, right? So, if you want this implant under this membership plan, understand that we're also going to warranty this, but you do have to continue to come in for your 2 cleanings, right? So ensuring that you have that loyalty to the patient.
Yep.
The way I look at really membership plans is, again, from my medical days, concierge medicine, right? So you have the MD VIPs, you have Village Medical, you have One Medical, right? So there's like kind of a pseudo concierge.
That's the Aetna one, right?
It is that one. Yeah. So you have your pseudo concierge medicine. Well, One Medical is Amazon, right? Amazon purchased it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So the concept there is, okay, well, why are people flocking to that in the medical world? Everyone has medical insurance. Well, no, not everyone has medical insurance, right? And the insurance they have is maybe for catastrophes only.
Yep.
And you fast forward into, okay, what other industries, right? So you have some membership products and industries like who encourage underutilization, right? So the gym, like the gym doesn't want it to be full every single day. Car washes, right? Like
totally.
If you're paying $25 a month for a car wash, the car wash is banking on maybe you do two a month, but hopefully you're not there 8 times a week, right? So
depends on the country.
Exactly.
the part of the country, right? Yeah.
But then you have membership products that really encourage utilization, right? So Costco wants you to keep coming back in. They have certain things that are loss leaders within their practice, but they do that because they want you to come in, they want you to feel trust, they want you to feel comfortable in the environment. And dental offices are no different, right? And so if you look at most membership plans, they're offering cleanings, they're offering exams and x-rays, and sometimes that's a wash when it comes to the economic side. But there's a tremendous amount of stats out there. Like, patients who have insurance versus a membership plan tend to spend 25% more within a practice through their membership product. Many practices who have really dialed into the membership concept, the membership plan is top 5 payer mix for them.
Yeah.
Right. And when you think about the uninsured, so the uninsured concept, over double on spend for a membership plan versus someone who has no insurance. Someone who has no insurance who really just walks in, they just want to solve one problem.
Sure.
They're not trying to be a patient for the practice long term.
Mm-hmm.
And that can become very expensive from a customer acquisition cost standpoint.
Right.
So you go out and spend thousands of dollars on marketing and you get that one, I got this one tooth, I need this one extraction out, and I never want to see you again, versus somebody who becomes a member of the product and your team knows how to present that. Well, yes, we can help you with the extraction. We can also help you with the bone graft and the implant and have you continue to be seen here for the long haul, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting because obviously we're in the med spa space too, and it's retail, right? Like it's how do you retain kind of that client or that customer, and that's a huge component in the med spa space. And so to see it kind of shift over to the dental side a little bit, like it feels like dental's getting a little bit more like retailized, and it's more of that ease of access. And so, when you think about memberships versus insurance, in your mind, what are kind of the key differences? I know you mentioned a little bit around it, but like what in your mind, how do you delineate the two?
So medical insurance is very different than dental insurance. Dental insurance is essentially a discount plan, right? So, the dental insurance will say, hey, we've negotiated prices for you. We're going to give you up to $1,500 a year. But we still also will determine if it's covered or not. So we control that element of, treatment acceptance on that side of it and what's covered. And after $1,500, again, you're back on your own, right? So there's no additional coverage on that side. When you look at membership plans really gives the patient the option, one, of going where they feel comfortable and having services that are essentially at a discounted price because they're part of that practice. And there's no limitations. There's no waiting periods, right? You have to wait 6 months before you can come in for restorative work.
Right.
Why am I waiting 6 months? Like, I need this.
It's a concierge service,
right?
Yeah.
I need this now.
Yeah.
So why am I waiting 6 months? Because my insurance says I need to wait 6 months, right? And there's great, membership plan products and companies out there. I would say if you're working on an Excel spreadsheet, it's not getting the attention it needs, right? And but there's products like Dental HQ and Clear, and one of the ones that many of our partners use is Subscribely.
Oh,
and they're in the med spa space, they're in the vet space, they're in the dental space, right? And so they've really kind of catered plans specific to the practice themselves. But one of the value adds that they have is you can actually use an HSA card for the membership plan itself. Most of the time you can use the HSA card for a filling or a crown,
right.
But you're not actually able to purchase the membership plan itself with HSA card.
Got it.
Right? And so they're one of the only companies that is able to actually do that. And I think going from a patient experience standpoint, you have to look at something that's easy for the patient to see and engage with. When it's an Excel spreadsheet, the patient doesn't know anything, right? There's no information there on when are they due for their next cleaning, when should they schedule an appointment, right? So proactively using a platform out there that can really drive volume is critical.
And the volume is where I was going to actually follow up with, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, so
Sure.
I apologize. But from a membership perspective, we think about patient flow, visits per day. Like, we have all these KPIs that every DSO is tracking.
Right.
The membership, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like it just allows them to come in just that when they want. And so it's that access to you that you're not waiting, the recall's in 6 months and okay, we're going to wait 6 months and then we'll call on them to come back to our practice. It's like, hey, we can fit you in and we can do this.
Yeah, it's the concierge. It's the concierge side, right? So like most membership plans, one of the benefits that they want to promote is unlimited emergency exams. If you feel some pain, come in.
Yeah.
We want to create this opportunity for you to come in and yes, you get your cleanings, you have your normal exams, but creating that engagement with them to say, hey, here's your membership, to our practice. We see you as a loyal patient. We're loyal to you as well.
Yep.
And then again, encouraging them to come in, encouraging the utilization versus like a car wash.
Definitely not a car wash.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, awesome. Well, we were talking a little bit about conferences. So where are you headed, next?
Yeah. So last year was crazy busy with conferences, all this pent up demand over from COVID. So 3 years of just trying to figure it out. But, next week I'm headed out to the Inner Circle. CareStack does kind of their own, conference, which is, I think this is their third one. They did a great job last year.
I hear you're MC in there.
I am. I need to. My daughter's working on some of my opening line jokes, and so
this is good practice.
It is good practice, exactly. And then there's one DSO that's coming up. There's Chicago Midwinter, and then one of the ones I really found a lot of value in. So I'm a member in this one. Is called the ADSO.
Yep.
And I would say over the last few years, ADSO is really taking a stronger kind of market share of presence for conferences.
Yeah.
And the concept is great. I mean, again, I'm in these meetings. I'm in the executive committee meetings where they're really kind of determining what's the vision of this group. It's not just a group of people who just get together and hang out, right? It's like, what is the vision? And so pain points of insurance reimbursement, pain points of staffing and hygiene, they're actually moving the needle, right? Yeah. So they're meeting with the dental schools and the hygiene schools across the nation to say, okay, we obviously have a bottleneck somewhere.
Yep.
Where's this bottleneck at? And either it comes down to there's not enough faculty at the school to be able to see more hygienists and then graduate more hygienists. Yep. And then so we identify that as a problem. So now let's work on a solution for that problem. Okay, here's another problem. We don't have enough dental assistants in the community, right? Dental assistants are going elsewhere for other job options. How do we bring awareness back to, high school, early college, associate kind of students that dentistry is a great option for them and it's stable, right? And it's a well, valued profession. And so now there's a marketing campaign to really target across different states on how to build up the base for dental assistants, right? So listening to really the voices of, obviously it's focused around DSOs, and
Sure.
DSOs are the ones who contribute to the fund to allow them to go out and really lobby and kind of drive the right message. But I've been impressed over the last year and a half in terms of their vision and really just going through just execution. It's hard to get that many people on the same page and then come up with an idea and ultimately execute. But I think they've taken some great strides in doing it. And then after that, there's Dykema, of course.
Yeah. It's fascinating just to see, as we wrap up here, just dental's been around for so long. It continues to get professionalized in just a more efficient way. And so, you were talking a lot about the ADSO and what they're doing, and that was the word that was in my mind, that it's just continually to be tweaked and professionalized and more sophisticated. And it'll be interesting to see what the next kind of 5 or 10 years hold.
Yeah, I think, folks who are waiting for the perfect time are going to keep missing their time.
Sure.
Right. And I think just dentistry with innovation and just being innovative in the sense that you're always iterating, right? So get started, and just sometimes jump in, right?
Yep.
Like you just have to jump in, and you'll have to learn and adopt. But if you listen to your users, you listen to your teams in terms of what makes sense, then make those minor tweaks, and you'll continue to get closer to perfection, right? In that sense.
Yep.
But really, it's part of just jumping in and just doing.
I love it.
Executing and understanding you may fail, right?
Yeah.
Like that's okay.
Yeah.
That's part of the journey.
It
part
is.
Of the process.
It is. I think we've all experienced that. And so, I can't thank you enough. Thanks for spending time with us. It was fascinating to hear. It's just such a different business model than I think the typical dental practice is used to. So, we appreciate you giving the insight. Before you run, how can people get in touch with you? Website?
Absolutely. Yes. So again, my name is Santosh Patel. My email is santosh@completespecialty. And although we're just in Texas, mainly, like, we are helping groups nationwide and launching their own specialty program itself, right? So plug in, plug out, and be able to allow them to really sustain their own program for growth. And so love to have that conversation. Our website's completespecialty.com. Again, all my access is there through email and through the web chat. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate having you. And hopefully all these conferences you can, good luck with the MCing.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate again, honored to be here, and excited about what you guys are doing for this space, and love to collaborate further.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.